believe in the gun. And our players don't use it most days. They use it every day.
In my 20 years as head coach, I've used the gun every single year. Well, my dream as a coach that everybody would grow up with the gun, because getting all those reps would make my job a lot easier.
Hello, everyone. I'd like to welcome you to the second session of the NABC Championship webinar series today. Tom McDonald, and we got Troy Hilton on the phone. I'm on the board of directors. I'm the 2-year college coach rep and also work with Championship Productions. Some special thanks to the NABC, Jim Haney, Reggie Mitten, Troy Hilton, and the rest of the NABC staff for just all their support and hard work in marketing, just getting all of our stuff out to everybody. It's kind of a nonstop social media blitz. And all of you for being on. Our numbers are absolutely through the roof, so I appreciate all of you being on, taking the time out of your day, even though a lot of you are quarantined to your homes, and we just hope all of you are safe and stay safe and during this pandemic. We'd like to thank the Gun for being the sponsor of this event and this webinar series. And Sideline Interactive has just got involved and said, hey, we'd like to help. They're going to give one board, one 8-foot LED board, free shipping. It's worth over $11,000 to somebody during these webinars. At the end, we'll pick the winner. Craig Reed has done an unbelievable job in KBA and his sister. All these coaches that are stuck at home and they can't get to their offices, we've been able to send them marker boards, clipboards, magnetic boards that they can use during their presentations. Like Rob Senderoff did an unbelievable job with that magnetic board, and he'll be on again at 5 o'clock Central Time today. Dana Fisher is coming up next at 2 o'clock, Steve Prohm at 4 o'clock, and Rob Senderoff at 5, right after Coach Prohm. A thank you to Mike Bray, Notre Dame, for being the past president and being nothing but supportive of Troy, Troy Hilton and myself on these fall clinics, the Final Four clinics that didn't or weren't able to happen, and then these spring 5 clinics that we're going to have, and they were off to the races. Our registrations were through the roof, so it was we all felt terrible when we had to cancel them, but thinking of this and talking to Troy and the NABC to do these webinars, the coaches have been absolutely unbelievable in helping us and their time and effort. Jamie Dixon, who's now the current president, and the rest of the board of directors have been nothing but supportive also in helping social media-wise and their time to be on. Championship Productions, Bill Bergen, the owner, Nate Landis, Daryl Bennett for their time also. But before I introduce Coach Jim Boone, who's, I would say, nothing but a friend, and a coach's coach. And what I mean by that is he's one of those guys, people, coaches that would help anyone, anytime. A couple things he's going to say to you, I'm sure, is, hey, if you want any of this information, here's how you get a hold of him. And we're going to put it on the screen for question and answers, his email address. And he's nothing but willing to share. And then questions, when he gets done with his first PowerPoint on the pack line, we'll take questions then. And then he's got a second one that he'll talk about too. So he's going to go for an hour and a half, hour and 45 minutes, and we've got plenty of time before Coach Fisher gets on. Here's bio, and like I said, he is one of the consummate professional people, coaches. Things I like when I look at his bio is this: 17 bursts in the NCAA Division II National Tournament. He's 14th among active NCAA Division II coaches in wins. NCAA Division II top 40 all-time winning coaches. You know, he's taken over a lot of programs, and I think that's another thing I'll ask Coach in a minute is, you know, you've been a few places over your time. He's at Arkansas Fort Smith now and taking that program over. He's got 571 wins in 34 years. Here's maybe the bigger one and the most important one for us. It shows his commitment to the profession of coaching. 35 years he's been a member of the NABC. He is nothing but a friend to the NABC and to myself and Troy and to all coaches. Hopefully that's a good enough introduction, Coach Boone.
Wow, man, I tell you what, that's as good as it gets. Thank you. I appreciate it.
My first question to you as coach is this. I know how important education is to you and to your players and what you try to do for them. You know, almost all the coaches that are on, maybe 80% of the coaches are high school educators, coaches, teachers. I just thought, hey, if you could talk about your background and how you got really going in this profession and the people that really paved the way for you. And then if you could talk about leadership, motivation, culture, and then go right into your the pack line.
Wow, we could do an entire clinic on leadership and culture. But let's start with your first question. Great question. How I got started in this, and the real quick story. My parents did not want me to be a coach. They wanted me to go to law school. And I was actually going into my senior year in college. I played at a small HBCU school in West Virginia. One of the best things I ever did, you know, having an opportunity to play basketball at the collegiate level. I was not a good player. I was a very good high school player that ended up being average at best, probably not even average college player. But I thought that gave me great perspective and being able to sit on the bench and watch and observe and learn. Had a terrific coach that coached me in college, Bob Maxwell. Anyway, to make a long story short, I was accepted to like 3 or 4 different law schools. And, you know, I finally just came to grips with it and had a chance. And my parents were awesome. I had a great childhood growing up, but, you know, they wanted me to do this law school thing. So I sat down with them and I said, hey, I can go to law school and I'll be successful. I'll do it. I'll make it and I'll be good at it. But I'm never going to be great at it because it's not my passion. It's not what I'm burning to do. It's not what I want to do with my life. I don't feel like it's my mission in life. And my dad looked at me and said, what do you want to do? I said, I want to be a coach. And he said, a what? I said, a coach. He said, you can make money doing that? You're going to be able to have a family and support yourself? And so I made a deal with them that I would go and get my master's in business because they wanted me to have something to fall back on in case this coaching thing didn't work out. So I went to the University of Kentucky and basically chose to go there because, number one, it was close to home. Number two, they had a 1-year MBA program that I could get through quickly. And number three, basketball. And I went in and met with Coach Hall. Joe B. Hall was the coach at the University of Kentucky at the time. And he didn't have a GA available, but he said, hey, you can come around and you can just observe, watch practice, take notes. And for that year, I don't think I missed a single practice that they had and just tried to absorb and learn as much as I could. But the biggest learning opportunities I've had in my career occurred going to clinics and then working camps. Going to clinics was the greatest because you had an opportunity to be with other coaches. And, you know, sometimes the conversations that take place between coaches outside of the clinic are even more valuable than the clinic itself. The clinic itself spurs on a lot of thought and conversation, and then those conversations that you have with coaches. And I think sometimes we miss that when we're just, you know, staying at home and the resources that we have with videotape and television and computers and what have you. But actually going to clinics is just a great way to learn. And then working camps and going to practices. And probably the person that helped steer me was my junior high school basketball coach, Alan Osborne. He was so influential, and he's still coaching today. He's like the winningest coach in the state of West Virginia. You know, going to see Coach Knight in one-man clinics, going to work Indiana's camp, going to watch practices, and then getting a chance to meet and become good friends with Coach Don Meyer, who became a mentor, as I mentioned, a friend, and someone that I was in constant communication with. So I've been very fortunate that I've been blessed to be around some really good people: Rick Majerus, Dick Bennett, Bob Knight, Don Meyer, Jeff Van Gundy, that have been instrumental in my coaching career in one way or another, and have always been willing to share and help. And that's what we've tried to do, is to share and to help coaches. I didn't get much into the leadership and the culture. I think obviously culture is huge. It's a big buzzword today. It's but it's true, and it's not what culture is. Just simply how you live every day, and how you live in your program, how you want your program to be. It's what you permit. It's what you demand. It's what you preach to your team on a daily basis. And I'm a very strong believer in creating you're going to have a culture. It's going to happen regardless of whether you impact it or not. So obviously, I think it's imperative that you do whatever you can to have the type of culture that you want to have. Before I get into the pack line, and Tom, you mentioned it, we've kind of made our niche in this business with going in and taking programs that really nobody else wanted and turning them around and building them into something that's very successful, and leaving them a lot better than what they were before we got there. I don't have a pedigree in coaching. I didn't play at Duke. I didn't play in North Carolina. We've kind of had to do it just like a lot of our listeners have done it, the hard way, so to speak. We've had to work at it and put ourselves in a position to move up the ladder and receive opportunities. So consequently, a lot of the jobs I've had were not great jobs, but we've made them into really good jobs. Every Division II school that we have coached at, we've taken them to the NCAA tournament, which is an unprecedented accomplishment and something that we're looking forward to doing here at the University of Arkansas Fort Smith. One of the really neat things in my coaching career was the opportunity to coach my son. And I know it's not right for everybody, but for us, it was awesome. I wouldn't trade it for anything, any amount of money, fortune, or fame. The chance to coach him and be with him on a daily basis during his collegiate career and his growth as a young man was absolutely tremendous. And as much as I enjoyed that, he has coached with me for the last 10 years and is our assistant coach here at UAFS. And that's been even better. That's been even more satisfying and more fulfilling and more fun on a daily basis to have your son coaching with you. So what I want to do now is move into our topic. And I'm going to try to fix there we go.
Coach, we'll talk again when you get done with your first PowerPoint, all right?
That sounds awesome. Awesome. Good deal.
Keep going. Great job.
Okay. Well, I want to our topic today is the pack line defense. And for some reason here, I'm not being able to control. Okay, I lost my screen, but let's see how this does. Yeah, there we go. Perfect. I did want to mention our and am I still with you guys? We're good?
I can see you, not your presentation, Coach.
Okay. I can see my presentation, but I can't see you guys. Well, let's try this. Okay, there we are.
Lonnie, you want to step in like you helped last time?
I don't know what happened. Let's try the share screen again and see if I can get it to come back up.
There it goes.
Yes. Great job, Coach.
We'll see. Okay. Are we up?
Yes,
Perfect.
looking good.
I apologize to our viewers. And as I mentioned before, the one thing that the pandemic is forcing us all to do is to be a little bit more creative and have a little bit greater savvy in regards to our technology and proficiency of such, which is something that has been a struggle for me, but we are getting there. I wanted to mention our free coaches clinic that we run every fall. It's tentatively scheduled for October 9th and 10th, and hopefully we'll be able to have that this year pending how we progress through the current situation that we're in. But it's we cover everything pack line defense from A to Z, the development of our motion offense, and much, much more. It's an opportunity for coaches to see us develop the offense in our defense with our team. We have our team involved in practice and demonstration. So it's been really good for us and something that we'd love to have coaches to come to. Tom had mentioned in the beginning of our conversation that if anyone would like to have copies of our PowerPoint presentation, I'm more than happy to send that to you. You can just email me at the address that's listed there at the bottom left-hand corner, jim.boone@uafs.edu. Okay, I want to get right into my topic today, but I do want to hit a couple of quick hitters before I get started. And the first thing I want to say is this. I want to thank the NABC for all they've done for coaches. Tom had mentioned that I'm a 35-year member. It's been a great run for us, the NABC, and again, the opportunity to get together as coaches, whether it's going to development sessions, career development sessions, personal development sessions, clinics, but just the opportunity to be around other coaches, I think is amazing. Okay, a couple quick hitters here to get started that I wanted to hit on. The first thing, these are things that I wish that someone would have hit me with. And you know what? They probably did. And I probably just wasn't a very good listener as a young guy. But these are things that as I progressed through my coaching career, found out just how important each and every one of them are. The first one is less is more. You know, the great Hall of Fame coach Pete Newell, pictured in the right-hand corner of the PowerPoint, you know, he won, I think it was the 1959 national title at Cal Berkeley, beating, our West Virginia team with Jerry West on it. But anyway, Coach Newell used to say always, I've heard him say this, and I've heard Coach Knight repeat it many times, that basketball is the most overcoached and undertaught game there is. We say complexity is the enemy of execution. You know, you can do it all, or you can try to do it all, but how much of it are you really going to be good at? And so our thought is let's do less and let's be really, really good at what we do. I think all the great coaches and all the great players master simple. They're very good at simplicity. It's, again, it's not about how much you do. It's about what you do, and more importantly, doing things that you're comfortable with in regards to your teaching and your philosophy. Think about the elite programs across the country. They're always known for something. There's something that stands out. There's something they're really, really good at. Everybody in your league should know what you're really good at, what stands out. My second thing is consistency. And I mentioned Coach Meyer earlier and how important of a role he played in my life and in my coaching career, both. He's been so important to us as a family, to my sons, to our entire family. And I miss him dearly. But Coach always used to talk about the 5 things that separate great programs from good programs. And one of those 5 was consistency, being consistent in your philosophy, your culture, the X's and O's you approach the game with, the language, your drill package. And, and something that Coach always said, you want to get all the good ideas, but understand you can't use all the good ideas. And so when we do go to clinics or we hear speakers and those kind of things, we see a drill and we think, oh man, this is really awesome. I'm going to put this in. And you put it in and then you realize it just doesn't fit. So we don't want to put drills or things into our offense or defense that are diametrically opposed to what we're already teaching. We want to make sure that we're very consistent in what we do. And the last thing about consistency that I want to say is simply this, and that's in your corporate language, the verbiage that you use with your team. If I've got an assistant coach on one end teaching something, and I've got an assistant coach on the other end teaching the very same thing, I would hope that I'm hearing the exact same verbiage, the exact same terminology coming out of both coaches as they're teaching that particular skill. So be consistent in everything you do. And then if there's one thing that you get from this, couple of weeks period that the NABC and Championship Productions and Tom are doing these clinics, it would be this. If you get this one thing, I think that you've been successful. It's not what you teach, it's what you emphasize. I first heard that from Coach Bennett, and it rings so true. You achieve what you emphasize. For us, it's our defense, and we emphasize our pack line defense in everything we do. Every decision, literally, every decision we make centers around our defensive play. How we play, how fast we play, what type of offense we're going to utilize, who we're going to have handling the basketball, the shot selection and how quickly we're going to shoot it, who we recruit, who we choose not to recruit, who's going to play, who's not going to play. Those things all come down to our defensive approach. Now, I heard this a couple of years ago from Greg Popovich in San Antonio speaking at the NABC Coaches Clinic. He said that you need to really know who you are as a coach. Number one, who can you coach? Every player is not right for you, and you're not right for every player. Who can you coach? What can you teach? What are you really good at? What do you want to be really good at? What are the things you're the most comfortable with in teaching? Who do you want to surround yourself with in terms of assistant coaches and people that support your program and are around your program? And then most importantly, how do you want to teach it? And I think that's extremely, extremely important. So then I ask you this question. What are your program's anchors? Can you name them out real, quickly, bang, 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 what they are? There should only be 2, 3, 4 at the max. More importantly, can your players name what your anchors are? For us, they've always been these 3 things. Sureness, which is taking care of the basketball, but I love the term sureness as opposed to not turn it over or what have you. Sureness, being sure with the ball. Don't put the ball at risk. Don't put the ball at peril. Don't try to make the home run pass, make the easy pass. We've got to be sure with the basketball and not turn the ball over. We've got to take care of the ball. So we're going to do a lot of different things in how we teach a permanent pivot foot, for instance. Anytime we catch the ball on the perimeter, we're going to pivot. Our pivot foot is always our non-shooting hand foot. That is hopefully something to eliminate travels. We want to pass with 2 hands, and certainly there's times that one hand is appropriate, but we want to pass with 2 hands. We want to catch with 2 hands. When we pass the ball to someone, we want to see that person catch the ball. We don't want to just throw it and take off. So we're really going to emphasize being sure with the ball. The second thing is shot selection. And I don't think there's anything that beats you faster, beats you quicker than taking bad shots. So we are of, it's basketball is not an equal opportunity game. Everybody's not a great shooter. We don't want 9 shooters shooting the basketball. And then finally for us, obviously, it's our team defense and the emphasis that we put on a daily basis into being the absolute best defensive team that we can be. Now, I understand the pack line defense is not for everybody, and it's not. It's you got to know who you are as a coach. You know, Socrates said, know thyself. And I think that's what Greg Popovich is outlining for you in the 4 questions that he asked. You've got to know who you are. I love how Coach Meyer used to always say it, be who you is. If you is who you ain't who you is. Now, there is no doubt in our mind that the path to championships, the DNA of championships, is defense. But before I go any further, I want to give the absolute most credit to Coach Dick Bennett. I call Coach Bennett the father of the pack line defense. Everything that this will be our 25th year of executing the pack line. And short story, when I took over at Robert Morris University, we inherited a very bad program that hadn't won for a number of years. And we had a great group of young men in our program that we inherited, but they were not very good basketball players. I knew we could not continue to play the way we were playing, which was up the line, on the line, deny, fight you tooth and nail for every inch of the floor. I knew we were going to have to change. And Coach Bennett had been at Wisconsin for, I think he was entering his 2nd year. I had an opportunity to run into him on the recruiting trails in the summer and kind of invited myself to come up and watch practice, which he was just so gracious. He and his coaching staff, Brad Soderberg, who's currently at Virginia with his son Tony, with Coach Bennett's son Tony, they were awesome. I took 4 days. I got the foundation for what they were doing with the pack line defense. We implemented it. We were not very good at it. We've become better and better and better at teaching it over the years. I can tell you this, I don't have all the answers. There's a lot of different ways to play this game, but I do have a great passion for what we do and how we teach the game of basketball, and particularly the defensive side of it. I will say that regardless of your philosophy and what you do, there's something here for everybody. I'm sure there's something you're going to be able to pick up in regards to teaching points, fundamentals, drills, what have you, that can help your defense no matter what your philosophy is, zone, man, or anywhere in between. Okay. I wanted to talk a little bit about 4 things that I think help kind of frame why we do what we do and what should go into you selecting your defensive approach. The first thing is, does your defense allow you to beat the best teams in your league? And that's what we're really trying to do, right? We're not trying to beat the Sisters of the Blind. We can beat them no matter what we do. We're trying to beat the best teams in our conference, our state, our region, whatever it is for you, the best teams on your schedule. For us, the pack line defense has been a great equalizer. We have arguably played the 7 years prior to coming to the University of Arkansas, Fort Smith. We were at Delta State University in the Gulf South Conference. And at that time, I thought, wow, the Gulf South, there cannot be another league with the level of athleticism and coaching that exists in this one. And the pack line allowed us the opportunity to compete, and to compete at the top of that league on a yearly basis. It became the great equalizer. And now as we've moved into our position here at Arkansas Fort Smith, and we're playing in the Lone Star Conference, I'm blown away. But of course, you and I both know the toughest, the most difficult league in the country is the one you play in. Well, the Lone Star is a bear from top to bottom. And trust me, our defense gave us an opportunity to win games this year that we had no business winning. So that's my first question. Does your defense give you an opportunity to beat the best teams in your league? Secondly, does your defense allow you to win on the road? And, coaches talk about, oh, well, it's about officiating. I'm going to go on the road. It's not about officiating. It's about getting the paint. It's about getting to the foul line. So for us, we think it's imperative that you have a defense that keeps the ball out of paint and protects the lane. And that, in essence, is what the pack line does for us, which keeps us out of those, hopefully out of foul trouble situations. Now, we all know, offense, sometimes it doesn't travel so well. But defense, your defense should always travel. Here's a big one. Does your defense get better as the season progresses? We used to be a scouting report defense. In other words, we changed what we did almost on a nightly basis, the nuances in terms of how we guarded a screen or a situation as per our opponent. So in other words, like on a Thursday night, we might guard a side ball screen in a certain situation, and then Saturday afternoon, we're guarding it totally different. Well, what we found is our players just don't get better when we're constantly changing how we're defending certain actions and situations. So we say our game prep starts on the first day of practice. The same way that we're going to guard ball screens, down screens, cross screens, flare screens, back screens, multiple actions. The same way we're going to guard those things, the first day of practice is the same way we'll be guarding them in March. So I don't care if you're a pack line team like us or you're an up the line, on the line, deny like a Duke. My point is that if you guard things the same throughout the year, your team will improve upon their fundamental abilities to guard those things as opposed to changing them constantly. Now, we'll make subtle changes in terms of our closeouts and those kind of things, but not in how we guard actions. And then finally, does your defense allow you the opportunity to advance in postseason play? And everybody says, coach, postseason play, it's different. Teams and coaches are more conservative. They're playing closer to the vest. Well, there's a reason for that. Think about it. Who makes it to the postseason? All the best teams. And why are they the best teams? Because they don't turn the basketball over. They work to get great shots. And so you better have a defense that is set up to defend for elongated possessions, because that's what you're going to see in the postseason. Now, Bob Knight always said you get what you tolerate. For us, that's in the form of know your nose. And I like to always share these when I speak at a clinic about our defense, because I think it gives you a really good conceptual, philosophical understanding of why we do what we do. So again, this isn't important that I know these. It's important that our players know these and understand them. So we spend an inordinate amount of time in teaching and emphasizing our non-negotiables, so to speak, our know your nose to our team. The first thing is, no paint. Listen, we cannot let the ball get to paint. That's the whole idea of the pack line defense. If the ball gets to paint, that's code red 911. We've got to get it out of there. There's got to be consequences. So for us, I tell our players, the ball gets to paint, we better take a charge, block a shot, get a steal, get a deflection, but we have got to get the ball out of there. And worst case scenario, we'll foul. Now, we're not going to be dirty or try to hurt anybody or anything like that, but we're not going to give you layups. If we can't do one of the other things I mentioned, take a charge, get a deflection, a steal, block the shot, we're going to foul you. We're not going to give up layups. We're not going to give up paint. The second one, this is a big one. And for some of us, as I mentioned, I was an on-the-line, up-the-line guy that forced everything baseline and, switched all like screens. And so the idea of no baseline was a little bit foreign to me, but it makes sense. We do not want to have rotations. I do not want to have my post player coming out of paint to try to stop a baseline drive and then helping across the lane to help the helper to take that post away. And now all of a sudden I got to cover wide and help down the lane with another player, which is usually a small guard trying to help down to block out a post player who's 6'7", 6'8". So not only did I put my initial post at risk in trying to stop a guard from driving the ball on the baseline of fouling, but I turned around and I put a 5'10", 5'11" guard down there trying to block out somebody that he has absolutely no chance to do. And I'm going to yell at him, Johnny, you got to block him out. And Coach, I am. He lost that battle before it occurred. So we don't, no baseline. So then people say, well, do you force it middle? No, we do not. Oh, that's just semantics, Coach. No, it's not. Listen, no baseline. We emphasize that in everything we do. I get asked constantly, okay, do you run, what type of rotation drills do you run if the ball's, we don't. My rotation drill is that I put somebody else in the game and you're coming out. We are not giving up baseline. We want to be square in guarding the ball. We want to keep the ball in front of us. So if you use your imagination and the ball's on the wing, I want the back of my head, my spine should be in line with the rim. So that therefore I'm not forcing middle. I'm working to keep the ball in front, but I understand I'm not giving up baseline. No rhythm shots, no rhythm threes. I heard Coach Majerus say this years ago. Shooters need room and rhythm. So it comes down to our closeouts taking away rhythm threes. And more than anything, high hands. Now, we're still old school in this. This is the way we do it. It's what has been great for me. I only do it because I feel like it's the best way for me, for us. But we close out with two high hands, always two high hands. I want fingers to the ceiling, hands between shoulders, and elbows bent. I don't know why, but if those arms go straight, then the legs go straight, and you're going to get blown by on the dribble. So we want high hands, fingers to the ceiling, hands between shoulders, elbows bent, and we do that to try to take away as much vision as we can and to give the offensive player the illusion that they do not have a walk-in shot, a walk-in three. No direct drives. That also comes down to closeouts. We want to close out hard and short. Our high hands allow us the opportunity to close out hard and short. We are sprinting the majority of the way. That last step or two, we're going to break down into a low, wide base so that we can absorb the dribble if the ball is put on the floor. We tell our players, you've got to be able to guard a yard. If you can just do that, guard three yards to your left, or 3 feet to your left, 3 feet to your right. If you can do that, then we've got a chance to be pretty good. You've got a chance to be pretty good. Keep the ball, keep the ball in front. No fast break layups. Nothing drives me more crazy than giving up a conversion layup. There is absolutely no reason that should ever, ever, ever happen. And you need to have a plan. You need to train your players and how you want them to get back on defense. We designate before. We're not going to have guards rebound. Our guards are going on the offensive end. Our guards are getting back. And I'm going to tell our players specifically, you're a get-back guy. You're a get-back guy. You're a rebounder. You're a rebounder. You're a get-back guy. You're a get-back guy. So they always know who they are, and we don't change that role. If you're a get-back guy, you're a get-back guy. So we conceivably could have 5 in the lineup at the same time, even though that's probably never going to happen, of guys getting back. We could have 4 in the lineup, which does happen from time to time, we're always going to have two guys that know that their job is to get back on the rise of the shot so that we have a two-man head start in conversion. One's going to the rim, one's going to the top of the key. Our other three guys know that their job is to go rebound. So I feel that makes us a good offensive rebounding team because they're not trying to say, well, I'm in this area, so I'm supposed to get back, or I'm here, so I'm supposed to go rebound. No, they know my job is no matter where I'm at, I'm a rebounder. Now, once the defensive team secures the ball, now they're running back as hard as they can go like their hair's on fire to get back on defense. No second shots. Defensive rebounding is the key to winning championships. And I don't care what you do. I don't care if you teach sight and flight, hit and go, hit and block, whatever you teach something and emphasize defensive rebounding. I just talked about fast break layups, defensive rebounding, and this one, no second shots. If our team went out and scrimmaged right now on their own, just played pickup on their own, I guarantee you there's two things they're not going to do. They're not going to block out, and they're not going to get back on defense. If you leave players to their own devices, they're not going to do those things. So you better have a plan, how you're going to teach it, what you're going to teach, and then emphasize that on a daily basis in everything you do. I often get asked, what kind of blockout drills do you do? We don't do a lot of blockout drills. We'll teach the basic habits that we want in blockout, and as I mentioned, we're going to hit, block, find, and get. That's our terminology for our players. We want to make contact, block out, find the ball, go get the ball, and we'll work on those basic fundamentals and how we want to accomplish that. And then from there, we emphasize block out in everything we do, whether it's 2-on-2, 3-on-3, 4-on-4, 5-on-5. And then finally, no fouls. We do not want to foul. And that's not to contradict number one, because of paramount importance is not letting the ball get the paint, and we're not going to give up layups. But as a rule, we don't want to foul. We want to shoot. We want to make more free throws than our opponent shoots. Listen, the best shot in the game analytically is a free throw. So it is our job to keep our opponent off the free throw line. We want to be able to get into the bonus before they do. Now, I did want to give you a couple thoughts here as I get to the 3 secrets to developing the pack line defense. And these things are not earth-shattering. They're things you probably know, but I will say this, as we progress through our development as coaches in teaching and implementing the pack line defense, these are the areas that we became better and better in at understanding and getting our players to understand how to teach and do them. So before I get to those, I did want to say a couple of things about drills. Just 4 or 5 things here that I think are really important about drills. We don't do a lot of drills, and I'll get to the reason why we don't do a lot of them here in just a moment. My number one thing about drills is don't be a drill coach, be a skill coach. In other words, let me just turn that around. Be a skill coach, not a drill coach. Don't just throw in drills for the sake of drilling. Try to make sure that all your drills translate to something that you want to see on the court out of your players. I think labeling your drills is really important. By labeling our drills, it allows our players to identify them and process them quicker and therefore get to the next thing in your practice, which picks up the pace of your practice. And we want to practice at a very intense and high pace. So by labeling drills, I yell out, we're going to go 2-on-2 or 3-on-3 closeouts, and we should have an echo. And we're big into echo yells that our players always echo. So if I call it, then they call it out. And now we are sprinting. I'm not going to tell them I want you here, and John, you're here, and Jimmy, you're here, and Bobby, you're here, and Billy, you're here. I want them to decide that. I want them to make those decisions, but I want them to get there quick, and let's get into that next drill as efficiently as we possibly can. I think, thirdly, anytime you can make your drills competitive, obviously that helps. You put that score up there, and it's amazing the level of intensity and the juices that start flowing. I know your guys are just as competitive as ours are. You know, that's why they play our great game. You can't do it for everything, but I think you do need to make as many drills competitive as possible, and then have some type of minimal, you know, whether it's run a down and back or do 5 push-ups or whatever. And we've always used this as well. Winners drink, losers run. So if we do particularly some type of team competition, we allow the winning team to go get a quick water break while the losers run a sprint or something, just to emphasize that. My fourth thing is, and I learned this at Snow Valley basketball camp working with Coach Tate's Locke. Coach Locke is the best teacher that I've ever been around. His ability to break down the most complex and to make it simple, his ability to be understood by by the players, his students, is amazing. He is just an amazing teacher. And he always said that, told us about the rule of 2. It takes about 2 minutes to demonstrate a particular drill. It takes a couple of days for the player to get the feel for it, but it takes about 2 months for it to become a habit. Excuse me. And, you know, that's what we're trying to do. We're trying to get our players to create, we're trying to create habits so they don't have to think about what they're doing. They just do it. And then finally, there is not a better teacher or methodology of teaching, I should say, than repetition. It is the oldest, and yet it's still the most effective form of teaching that there is. Mike Dunlap, you know, former NBA coach, college coach, won a national title at Division II. Coach Dunlap says repetition is Lord and Master. There's not a better teacher than repetition. I started this on drills and giving you a few of my ideas on drills, saying that we don't do a lot of them. And that's one of the reasons we don't. I think that having our players battle through repetition is extremely important in building the mental toughness that we want, that our defense requires, and that winning teams require. Winning teams are mentally tough. And you may say, we want to have 100 new things so that our guys are fresh. That's not us. I want our guys to fight through that boredom, that repetition, the routine of doing it on a daily basis, because I believe firmly that builds mental toughness. Now, let's talk about the 3 secrets to developing the pack line defense. The first one is pressure on the ball. You know, the pack line, a lot of guys think, oh, it's a soft, fluffy defense. No, it's anything but that. We want it to be a tough, hard-nosed, grit and grind, blue-collar approach to playing. I want to give you a quick analogy. You know, think about the Drew Breeses, the Brett Favres, the Peyton Mannings, the Tom Bradys. If you allow them to just drop back and pass it at will, they are going to pick your defense apart. What do football coaches say? You got to move them off the spot. You got to make them uncomfortable. And that's what we're trying to do with the basketball. We want as much pressure as your skill level and athleticism will allow you to do on the ball. How much? Well, as much as you can put on the ball without getting beat or without fouling. That's how much. So we're going to teach that in a number of different ways. I've got a couple of drills here that we like to use. The first one is our partner closeouts. And I've got a quick demonstration here from our team. This pass here. These are, you can just see, we start by tossing the ball out. We close out. We should be in a square stance. Our elbows should be bent, knees bent, low, wide base, a little bit of space, a little bit of cushion between the ball and ourselves. Let's see if I can get this thing moving here. Here we go. Then we're just going to have that person rotate in. The next guy comes up, throws the ball, rotates, and again. And you can see there at the end of that drill how when the offensive player brought the ball down to their waist or below, we want to jump back a half a step. And that's so we're in a better position to absorb the dribble, to deflect a pass into the post, because if the ball goes to their waist or below, they're looking to either pass it or put it on the floor. If they bring the ball back up above their waist, then we want to jump back up. And we just simply call that jump up, jump back. And then the next drill that we had was one-on-one full court lane slides. And this is one of my favorite drills. And let me say this before I play the drill for you. One of the things that we're doing in this drill is we're teaching a very important part of our defense. And that's the ability to if you're getting beat, we don't want to ride the player's hip. We don't want to escort that player, in other words, to the rim. We want to get off and get ahead and reestablish our stance on the basketball, our square stance on the basketball. We want to get off and get ahead. So in this drill, what we're teaching is the two best friends that any defender has is space and movement. We want to have a little bit of space, but I want you to put as much pressure as you can as per your skill level, your level of athleticism, to whomever you're guarding, but a little bit of cushion so that you're not just getting beat right off the dribble. And then keeping your feet moving. And I use the analogy of a tennis player that's ready to accept the serve. You know, that serve's coming 100 miles an hour. If you're standing with your feet in concrete, you've got no chance. You've got to have those feet moving and ready to pounce on that dribble or that serve to be able to return it. And that's what we're trying to do defensively. We want live feet. We want those feet moving. So we simply have the offensive player is taking the ball side to side from lane line to lane line extended down the entire court. And the first time down and back, we just want them to work that defender side to side so we can work on staying square with the basketball. But the second time we go, we want the offense to try to beat the defense. And if the offensive player can beat the defensive player, he's going to take it 2 hard dribbles past him and then hold up and wait for the defender to get off, sprint ahead, and to reestablish his stance. And then we will go again with the offensive player trying to beat the defensive player down the floor. So let's take a second here and we can watch this drill. You can see we're just working side to side here. We want active hands, and we're really big in teaching. We want our hands on the glass. Don't reach, don't lunge. We say there's a glass window, a glass wall between the offensive player and the defensive player. And we don't want your hands to penetrate that glass wall, to break the glass. We want them to be on the glass. And that prevents us from fouling, but yet puts pressure on the basketball, maintains a balanced stance. So we're just working side to side as we get down the court. And we just have all of our players, as soon as the group ahead gets past the three-point line or gets to half court, the next group is starting. And then as we do it a second time, as I mentioned, we're going to try to beat that player. And if we can beat them, then we got to get off and sprint to get ahead. Okay, and the last drill that I was going to show you is simply one-on-one closeouts. And let me say this, we like doing our closeouts in such a way that they're coming from a game-like situation. So we're either closing out from a gap, or maybe it's defending a ball screen and we're tagging a roll man and closing out from the tag. Maybe it's a stunt and recover, whatever it is. Maybe we're helping on a back screen, and now we got to close out, so that we're working on closing out from different positions. But we showed one of our simplest drills here. We've got a coach, a manager. You can even use a player listed as C in the diagram. He has the ball. If he passes to player number 3, we've got X3. He or she is closing out. Now, there's an important element here that we want to mention, and that's seeking leverage. As you can see in the right-hand side where X3 is closing out to 3, X3 is not running a straight line closeout to 3. If he ran a straight line closeout to 3, 3 would be able to sweep it and drive it left-handed right down the lane. And he basically has no chance. But by seeking leverage, getting lower than the ball, lower than his man, he's in a much better position to take away any drives to the basket. So that drill looks a little bit like this. You see the coach passes the ball. Let's go back to that. The coach passes the ball, and we close out. And I don't like our player's position right there. I'd like for his left foot to be a little bit closer, the defender that's closest to us. But other than that, pretty good. Good high hands. And he did a really good job there. Excuse me, I'm sorry. Let's watch it again. He does a really good job of keeping the ball in front, which is a key teaching point. Keep the ball in front and force a contested shot. Now, I don't like that he took himself out of a block out and rebound. And there's an excellent possession, even though he makes it, an excellent possession of keeping the ball in front and contesting the shot. Okay, this is a big one. Number 2, your position is your help. You know, the great Chuck Daly, Hall of Famer Chuck Daly, coached the Pistons, our dream team. You know, I heard Coach Daly on a number of different occasions. You know, I had the opportunity. I coached at Eastern Michigan, right down the road from where the Pistons would have their training camp. So I had a chance to go down and watch them a few times, and to hear Coach Daly. He always said that the defense doesn't get beat on the help. It gets beat on the recovery. That it's hard for defenses to do 2 consecutive things. When I think about what we were doing prior to going to the pack line, we were trying to deny and then give help and then recover. So what we did is we eliminated the denial part. So now our position is our help. We're already positioned in help. So essentially, we have removed the help and recovery mode. We don't have to go to help and then go to recovery. We're already in help to take away the drive, and then we can recover. So I hope that makes sense. And here are a couple drills that I believe will really illustrate that point. The first one is our 2-on-2 positioning drill. And one of the things that we're trying to teach in this drill, along with key teaching points that we've covered to this point, like closing out with high hands, being square to the ball, seeking leverage, not allowing anything to beat us to the baseline, to beat us to the outside, but is this: we must get on the ball to off the ball, and off the ball to on the ball as quickly as possible. So we don't want our players to meander or sashay, in their getting off the ball. We want them to sprint to get into their gap, to be ready to already be in help and take away that drive. And going from the gap to closing out, explode out of the pack line to the basketball. Now, we have 3 very simple rules for all of our non-ball defenders. And we expect them to follow these 3 rules at all times. We're going to put down a 16-foot pack line, just an arc. And, you can go to Lowe's and buy painter's tape. It will not affect your court. It will not take up varnish. It peels off easily. and it's going to stay down long enough that your players won't rake it up as they're playing with their shoes. So go to Lowe's, buy that painter's tape, put it down. Players are visual. They need to see. That pack line. So we want 2 feet inside the pack. If you're not guarding the ball, you've got 2 feet inside the pack. Secondly, we want them to be in a slightly closed stance, and we like a slightly closed stance, which I'll allude to in a moment, so that they are positioned in such a way that they are closer to the ball than the man they're guarding is to the ball. So they're closer to the ball than the man they're guarding. And the third thing is that they must see man and ball at all times. Don't get locked into your man. Don't get locked into being a ball watcher. See them both and position in such a way that you can see them both. So one of our base drills that we do to teach these habits are 2-on-2 positioning. And where we want to sprint from being on the ball to off the ball. And being off the ball to on the ball as quickly as possible. A really good clip here. Now, we did overhelp a little bit there, and that's one of the things that you're going to have to teach against. As that drill progressed, you saw where they got better and better. The first couple of drives, they overhelped. If our defender is staying in front of the ball, then there is no need for us. We can adjust, and we tell our players, our terminology for that is you're constantly repositioning in your gap so that you're ready to close out to the ball. Now, this drill, I love this drill. This is just taking basically our one-on-one full court lane slides, adding another player to it so that we're 2-on-2. We're going the length of the floor. We're not trying to score. We're just trying to beat the defense to the baseline, the other baseline. The idea with the offense is if you don't have the ball, you must stay even or behind the ball. Kind of like in soccer, hockey, you can't be offsides. We do that just for the purpose of the drill. And when our defensive player closes out on the pass to his man or her man, then we want that person to close out with high hands, and I want the offensive player receiving the ball to shot fake. And then you do everything you can as an offensive player to try to beat that defender. If they beat us to the outside, you better get off and get ahead. On the inside, you're going to have a helper in the gap. So just a couple of the key teaching points I just mentioned: close out high hands, stay square in your stance. We're getting on to off and off to on as quickly as possible. Here is a clip of us in our 2-on-2 full court lane slides. And you can do this drill 2-on-2 or 3-on-3 if you like. But you can see when we're closing out, I want as much pressure as you can put. Overhelped a little bit there. Get off, get ahead. Good job. Great gap by the defender. Overhelped again. Didn't need to be that far over. We want them already to be in help and not have to go to help, which is what we ended up doing in both of those. Let's watch it again. I think that the player guarding the ball that's on the right-hand side of the court is doing a much better job of getting into the gap. Did not necessarily seek leverage there, but really good, really good. And then finally is one of our base drills, 3-on-3 closeouts. We're going to do this at least a couple of times a week throughout the season, but we're working on closing out and stopping the ball as a group, as a team. We like to start it with a coach. All three players are in the lane. Their feet are moving. The ball goes out. They're closing out. And then you can add different elements to it. You can say, okay, offense, you can only take a layup. So that becomes like we're guarding a guy that can only drive the ball. We want to close out hard and very short. Or maybe we say, okay, offense, you can get a paint touch and a kick out for a three, which I think becomes much more game-oriented now, where we're trying to keep the ball out of paint. And if it does get to paint, we've got to be able to get to the next thing, be a continuous player, and arrive on the shot to contest and take away any rhythm threes. And then obviously we can add a low post, which I will show that drill as well. So here we are with 3-on-3 closeouts. This is an outstanding job. This was paint only or layup only. That was an outstanding job by our defense of outlasting the offense and forcing the next pass. And as you can see, part of our culture is toughness and hard work. So we had guys diving on the floor, and then unity. We had guys running to pick that guy up and congratulate him and encourage him on his efforts of giving up his body for his team. So that was a good example of 3-on-3 closeout and us really working to outlast the offense. And that's what we're trying to do. You're not going to win every battle, but if we can win the majority of the battles, then we're going to win the war. And now simply you can add a low post, and we'll just put that post player underneath the rim and his defender on him and throw the ball out. We like to start it with the first pass. We allow that pass so we can work on our perimeter defense. And our base way of guarding the post before our post trap is to choke and dig. And so here is an example of our team in practice. You see our post coming across. Now, we did take away the initial post cut there, which I thought was really good. And our post defender is not conceding the catch. He's three-quarter on top. Does a really good job of showing his hands. We're doing a great job here of just outlasting the offense, forcing the next pass. And we're choke and dig here. Good closeout, good recovery. Very good clip. Okay, that brings us to the third thing, and that is that in this, we've got to understand this. You're not going to keep the offense, particularly good teams. You're not going to keep, and that's who we're trying to be again, right? We're trying to beat the good teams. You're not going to keep them from getting good shots. But what you can do is you can influence the type of shot. I firmly believe there are three areas that we have complete control over as coaches: your low post defense, defensive rebounding, and conversion. So this is an area where we try to work on those three things and making sure we're forcing the offense into contested twos. One of the things I didn't mention when I was going through Know Your Nose is in Division I basketball, first shot field goal percentage is something like 40%. It's either right, 38, 39, 40%. So if you take away runouts and fast breaks and, out of bounds unders and all those things, and you just play half court defense, and you can prevent the offense from getting a second opportunity, you have greatly enhanced your opportunities for victory because you have held that offensive team to probably around 40% or lower. And that's what we're trying to do in our defensive approach. Now, the first drill that I want to share with you is our 4-on-4 stationary change. Now, we're a motion team, so we will progress with doing this drill, just running 4-on-4 live and letting our players go anywhere they want offensively. But I think the best way to initiate teaching of this drill is to do it in a stationary manner. And then from there, you can build it. Now, quickly, the rule we have, the coach is going to yell, in this case me, I'm going to yell change. And when I yell change, the offense is going to just set the ball down right where they're at. And they're converting the defense. And we're staying in the half-court area that we're operating in. The defensive team is going to convert to offense. So the closest person to the basketball that was on defense is going to get that ball and then attempt to drive or kick to a teammate and in an attempt to make an initial thrust to score the basketball as aggressively as possible. So our defense, our offense that converts to defense, must do everything they can to keep the ball out of the lane and influence the type of shot that the offense is now going to get. The caveat that we throw out there is simply this: you can't guard the man who is guarding you. So what does that do? That forces our players to communicate. Our process is this: the first thing we want to do in conversion defense after getting back is to stop the basketball. So in this drill, 4-on-4 change, that's what we're teaching. We want the closest defender who wasn't being guarded by that man that picks up the basketball to close out to the ball, that man, and stop the ball. That's the number one thing. The other three must get to paint first. Find the ball and build our defense to the ball. Load to the ball. The ball beats you, not the man. You know, I always like every year with our team, I'll have the ball in my hands and I'll say, "Hey, Johnny, go score." And they look at you like you've got three heads, like you're crazy. "Coach, I can't. I don't have the ball." Exactly. You don't score, the ball scores. You can't score without the ball. So we want to build our defense to the basketball, irrelevant of where everyone else is. Secondly, now find a man, talk it out. This is who I have. And not just communicate verbally, but we want to communicate by pointing. I've got this one, you've got that one, so that everybody has picked up a man and stopped the basketball.
What type of offense is the weakness of the pack line, Coach?
Well, first of all, we feel like it's pretty good against everything. That's why we do it. I will say this: if you throw out five guys that can all shoot the basketball, then obviously that is a problem for any defense and is a problem for the pack. But I think the thing that teams try to do the most against pack line comes from dribble drive, where they'll triple gap. They'll create like they'll have a guy in the deep corner on the left wing, nobody in the left guard spot, and have a guard in the right guard spot that is looking to use that entire left-hand side of the floor to drive the ball down. And so whenever we play a team that tries to triple gap us, it is imperative that we do a good job of not letting them beat us to the outside. And we tell them now the outside has changed to that left-hand side. You cannot. And it takes a little bit of teaching to get your team to the point they can do that, and then they can become really good at it. Really good at it. Good question.
Coach, can I ask you one more?
You can ask me as many as you want, Tom. It's
Coach,
your show.
is this: would you adjust any of your rules if you were a high school coach with no shot clock?
No, I would not. But here's what I would do. And I get asked that question quite a bit. And thank you for asking it. If I did not have a shot clock, then I would have an alternate defense. But that alternate defense would not be a man-to-man. I would make it some type of zone defense. And here's the reason. I don't want to teach something that's diametrically opposed to our pack, but is a man-to-man approach. So we would run our pack line defense, and then we would try to have either a 1-2-2 or 1-3-1 trapping defense, so that if we had somebody trying to hold the ball on us early, or we needed to get a steal or to create a team to rush into offense, we could run that. Now I cannot hear you, Tom.
I'm losing my mind. Can you, over the webinar, could you say your email address, and we'll also put it on to these two coaches, but could you say your email address right now?
I can. It's Jim, Jim, Boone, Boone, @ UAFS, which is the University of Arkansas Fort Smith, UAFS.edu.
All right. Last question before I turn it over. Go ahead,
If you
Lonnie.
want his email address, you can click down on the Q&A.
And answered?
Look at the answered questions, and it's right in there.
Yep. All right, I'm going to delete those two. Coach, I'm going to turn you loose, okay? Go ahead.
Okay, let's see how we can go at it here. This is, I believe that it is, this is that 5-on-4 drill that we really enjoy doing. Again, one more time. And as you can see, so we've got an offense going against a 4. I don't like the fact that we took a bailout shot right there. Let's see if I can get back to the – but we've got a post player that's running the court on that right side and going to the rim that's on the white team, the offense, the team that was on defense converting. So my blue guards have got to get back, and I did not like how our guard and our big both got back there. But this is why you do these drills, so you can teach those things. So watching it again is our big here. He fades away. He shouldn't have done it. And then he's just jogging back. We want him to sprint back on defense. And we had a couple guys just jogging back. And we call that, it's a home run trot. You can't do that. And you've got to run back like your hair's on fire. And here's the deal. If they don't, then you have to hold them accountable. You either run or you set. In practice, you can run them. In games, you set them. Okay, I did want to share with you a couple things we think we looked upon as a troubleshooting chart. These are things that I think will really hurt your defense. There are things when we watch film with our players, the film doesn't lie. We want them to see these things. There's, poor closeouts. That'll beat you quicker than anything else. Can't give up rhythm threes. Can't allow direct drives. So closeouts are key. You hear coaches say we do something every day. There's nothing hardly that you do every day, but I'll say this. We do closeouts every single day. Every day we're going to do something with a closeout. Getting stretched, that's just wandering out of the pack line and not understanding that you've got to stay in the pack. Remember, again, our 3 rules. If you're a non-ball defender, 2 feet in the pack, slightly closed stance, closer to the ball than the man you're guarding is, and see them both. Going for fakes. In our closeout drills, we'll even have one we call partner fakes, where when we close out, we want the offense to fake a shot, fake a pass, whatever, put it on the floor 1 or 2 times, fake again, so we can really train our guys, drill our guys. Because let's face it, it's just like the old Navy SEALs quote, you're going to sink to the level of your training. So when you get in the game and you're guarding a really good player and he makes that fake, you're going to go for it. We can't do that. Fakes will kill you. We got to stay on the floor. We got to stay solid. So that's a great place to work on it. Lunging and reaching, that's where we use that terminology that there's a glass wall between you and the offensive player. Put your hands on the glass. Don't reach, don't lunge through the glass wall. Being late, in other words, not getting into your gap, not getting on to off the ball, off to on the ball. Getting too low in your gap is something that is a perennial problem for teams, particularly early on when you're teaching the pack line. I've seen that Virginia, when they teach it, they actually put a line across that's up off the baseline, probably 5, 6, 7 feet, and they can't go below that line because you really got to work on not getting – they'll get low in the gaps because they want to be safe. If you get too low in your gap, you've created a long closeout to the ball. And then obviously talking. Talking is a glue. It's imperative that you give them a language, and they're all talking that same corporate language so that we can be a better defensive team and stay connected. I felt like our team this year was not as good, particularly as we're going to be, simply because we had so many new guys and we were not very connected. And where it really showed up for us was when we had to guard intricate actions and ball screen scenarios where it's imperative that all 5 players are connected verbally, by vision, and by movement. Tom, this is kind of where we wanted to take just a couple minutes and answer any questions that guys may have. And at the same time, I'm going to stop the share with this.
And go to the next one.
Try to bring the next one up.
What adjustments do you do to make late game situations where the opponent needs a 3?
Great question. We call it blitzing. Our blitzing is if we switch. We do not like to switch in our defensive approach. And the reason being, we spend so much time on matchups. My first 10 years of coaching, as I mentioned earlier, we're an up the line, on the line, fight you for every inch. We switched all like screens. So we switched all guard to guards and all big screens. And this is what I found that really bothered me throughout that. If we're spending this time trying to educate our guys on what their opponent can do so that we can hopefully take those things away. So I'm guarding a Reggie Miller kind of guy, a dead 3, a Ray Allen guy, a knockdown 3-point shooter. Well, I've got to be able to get into him and chase him off the arc and force him to put it on the floor because that's what he doesn't do well. What he does great is shoot the basketball. And now all of a sudden I switch to a guy who's a driver. And I've got to take the drive away by being hard and short because he can't shoot and not let him beat me off the dribble. And being able to do that when the waters are muddied, when it's the heat of the battle, when the game is tied in the last 4 minutes and I'm a little bit fatigued, to be able to execute that is really asking a lot of a player. So we want to maintain the integrity of our matchups. We don't want to switch. So if I know I'm guarding that Ray Allen guy, that's a guy I've got to worry about taking away. And I'm not switching to anybody else. Now, with that being said, we do have a few times that we're going to switch. We could switch in a ball screen situation, not necessarily on the screen itself, but on a pick and pop. We could switch coming out of our post trap with our perimeters. And so we just resort back to the thought that we're late clock, and it's not going to be the mismatch that beats us in that late clock scenario. It's going to be the open shot, so we're trying to take that away. The coach asks the question, what about late game, trying to take away the 3-point shot? Let's say, for instance, it's a ball screen or it's a dribble handoff. Then we're going to switch it. And when we switch, we really work on switching up into the basketball so that we're not giving up that open 3. Listening to Coach Woodley the other day in his presentation, which was phenomenal, he used a terminology that I haven't heard before and I really liked. He said they want to pounce on their switches off of dribble handoffs. I like that word, that we're going to pounce on it. And I thought, that fits pretty good with Lions too, which is what we are. So there's the answer.
Against a dribble drive motion, do you force – hold on, this thing just moved. Force the catch to the wing to make take away the slot? We had to struggle against the dribble down the slot and see similar issues when teams guarded our dribble motion with the pack line.
I think I understand that question, Tom. And if I do, my answer would simply be this, that yes, I think you have to understand what the outside becomes. And it's difficult for players initially, but if you drill it, they'll get it. And we like to drill that through 4-on-4, particularly when and we'll do that and refresh that when we're playing a dribble drive team. So for instance, let's say the ball is in the deep left corner, not the ball that a player's in the deep left corner. That's where they've moved the wing to. And there is not a guard occupying the left guard spot. That guard's in the right guard spot. And so he's got the entire left-hand side of the floor to drive down. And we're working to stay on the outside of him, stay towards the left and force him back to the right. And I hate using that term, but it's the best and descriptive way I can say it. Force him back to your help. we're not going to let him beat us one-on-one to the left where the offense is set it up to do so.
Can you still play fast offensively in transition when forcing or focusing on playing pack line defensively?
That is a great question, and they're going to have to bear with me here for a second. That's not what I wanted, not my email, which my email is loading up right now. Let's see if I can get this. Remember we had that issue in the beginning, and if I could get to that page. Okay, let's just answer that question.
Okay. What?
I think that your offense needs to complement your defense. You can do it. You can play fast if you want to play fast. That's on you. There are guys that do that, and they have been successful in doing it. I don't feel like that that's good for us. And I use the analogy of a football team that wants to be like a run and shoot, pass team. You know, that's all great and good, but now all of a sudden, you know, they're getting into a situation where they're 3 and out, and their defense is spending all that time on the field where their opponent is grinding it out. You know, the old ground and pound, running the football and forcing those guys to defend, and they're just wearing down. I feel like if we just run at the expense of our defense, where we're keeping our defense out there, that we lose some of the edge that we have defensively by having an offense that is going to make you guard and not settle for quick shots. I think we accomplish a couple of things. One, we're going to be able to get paint touches with our offense, which is critical. By getting those paint touches, we get a better chance of getting to the free throw line, which is the highest analytical shot you can get, the free throw. And secondly, it makes them have to guard us. And now all of a sudden, we're going to make things really tough on them down on the other end where they don't get anything. And the best thing that can happen to us, we love it when we play against teams that want to shoot it quick. And then we're going down and grinding it out on the offensive end. They come down, shoot it quick. We go down, grind it out. They come down, shoot it quick. So I am a big believer that your offense should complement your defensive approach and vice versa. Are we still there?
What's wrong? What is wrong with pushing the ball sideline or baseline? Most of our opponents like to drive and play fast.
For us, I don't like to push the ball sideline or baseline because what's going to happen, you're going to get beat. And when you get beat, you're going to have to rotate. And when you rotate, you are creating opportunities to foul, number one. And number two, you're putting yourself at a disadvantage on the glass to block out and rebound. And so our defense, there's two things. There's three things that you will see an immediate result out of playing the pack line defense. You will become a much better conversion defensive team. You will become a much better rebounding team. And you will foul a lot less. And those are three of the major attributes that we're trying to exploit in playing the pack line.
Can a team that has very shallow bench and below average quickness play the pack line throughout a game?
Absolutely. I think that you just described the perfect pack line team. You know, we've had teams that we've only played 6 or 7 guys. Now, we do have the luxury of the 16, 12, 8, and 4 media timeouts, which are amazing. I mean, it gives you've got 4 minutes and a break. But you get a little bit of that in high school basketball where you have a quarter break. And then I tell coaches all the time, you have it, high school guys, you have a shot clock. It'll be in a state where they don't have one. They'll say, oh, no, coach, we don't have a shot clock. Yeah, you do. It's just 8 minutes long. you have a shot clock. And I think it's a perfect defense when you have lesser talent. It's a perfect defense when you feel you may be a little bit slower. It's a perfect defense when you may not be quite as deep. Let me tell this story quickly, Tom. One time several years ago when we were probably maybe in our 5th or 6th year of running the pack line defense, I had become friends with Jeff Van Gundy working camps. And so I ran into Jeff on the road at a coach's clinic, and we had an opportunity to visit with one another, and he was with the Knicks at that time. And I asked him, I said, why do you play the pack? You've got the absolute best players in the world. Why would you play the pack? And he says, so do they. And it's the absolute best way to play defense. So I felt, and this is me, this is my opinion, that the pack line defenses, regardless of what your level of athleticism or skill, it's a great way to play man-to-man defense.
This question, what offense do you use to complement the pack line?
We're a motion team, and we like to get the ball down the court. We just don't like to shoot it quickly unless we can get a layup or if we can get a green light shooter an open three. And for us, a green light shooter is a outstanding three-point shooter that can shoot a walk-in, uncontested three-point shot. If we can get that guy an open three, we'll take that. But everybody talks about pace. We want to play with pace, but we want to play with pace in the half court where we're cutting and screening with strength and purpose. But yes, Tom, to answer your question, we're a motion team.
How do you defend ball screens with rolling big men and pick and pop bigs?
Great question. Let me go back to this. We guard all ball screens the same. We don't want to guard them in multiple ways. We have divided them into 2 areas, side ball screens and middle ball screens. Middle ball screens occur in the middle of the floor. Side ball screens are anything outside the lane lines on the side of the floor. Side ball screens were all hard show. Think of a momentary trap. That's how we would defend that. So anything that came off of a side ball screen into a pick and pop scenario, we call it a fly switch. Our big always supports big. So our big that was not involved directly in the ball screen with the hard show would be the man switching to the pick and pop player. If they roll, we're giving momentary help there. And then we are sprinting to the rim to take the roll away with our hedge defender. The middle ball screen is we've guarded it level show in the past. We're toying around this year going to a one-step hard hedge because we really like getting over top of all ball screens, and that's different than some. I just don't like ever getting buried below that ball screen when they roll into you and there's no call, and all of a sudden you're giving up an open shot. Tom, our basic thought has been this in regarding ball screens, that we want to take the ball, we want to take the ball out of the equation. We want to force somebody else to be a shooter that the offense doesn't necessarily want to be a shooter. And we want to make it hard for the ball to get the ball out. We want to make it hard for the ball to make a quick pass, a strike pass. We want to make the ball have to make a difficult pass, a wild pitch or something, a looping pass to get it out of there. So it buys time for our defense. We do have a secondary way to guard ball screens, and that is to switch them, which we talked about earlier in one of the questions. And we will do that from time to time. For instance, if we were playing against a team that, for lack of a better way, just describe it as their 4, maybe they had a really good pick and pop stretch 4 he's really good. He's looking to set the ball screen, pick and pop, and shoot it. And so the fly switch or the stunt and recover would be things that would be very difficult for us to do and taking away their strength, and that's that 4-man's three-point shot. We would simply switch that as our alternate method. But that's it in regards to us guarding ball screens.
What specific offensive actions or counters give the pack line defense fits? How do you adjust?
Well, again, I think teams that can ball screen and have 5 guys that can shoot the ball are difficult to defend. But you tell me what defense doesn't have a difficult time with 5 guys that can shoot and are going to run multiple actions, whether they're ball screens or what have you. And secondly is the dribble drive team that tries to triple gap and create that, stretch your gaps and stretch you out and create that opportunity to drive where there is no gap defender. And so those, I think, are probably the 2 things that give us the most difficulty.
At the high school level, how would you adjust coverages versus a dominating big?
We're going to post trap all passes that go into a low post player. And that means for us, we call it red, and that's a big to big trap. As you had mentioned earlier, it was a part of one of our PDFs, our PowerPoints, so that if anybody that's listening to this would like to have that, I'll be happy to send it to them as a PDF, and it will show our rules, our rotations, and how we go about the post trap. If I didn't want to do that, it would depend. Okay, and this is my big thing about guarding the low post. We're 3/4 on top on a really good low post player. Our base way is choke and dig, which we only do usually for about the first couple weeks of practice, and then we post trap everything. We found when we tried to post trap sporadically that we just weren't very good at it. So we do it any and every time the ball goes into a low post player. If I was in a high school situation and didn't feel that they were a very good top-down, seal-out, top-down feeding team, I would highly consider fronting and being as physical as I could be and making the offense have to figure out how to throw it over the top so I could keep the ball out of that low post player's hands. But for us, we post trap.
Coach, 2 more questions, then Troy Hilton's got one, okay?
Yes, sir.
How do you defend a dribble handoff?
Another great question. We're going to slide through that. So our terminology is to get off and get under. So if I'm guarding the ball and he starts to drive, maybe he's in the guard spot and he's driving it down the wing to hand it off. As he starts to drive it down, and I see there's going to be a handoff, and my defensive teammate is communicating with me that it's going to be a handoff, I'm going to pop back off of the ball momentarily, giving my man the opportunity to slide between me and my assignment so that he can meet the handoff on the other side when it's handed off to his man. And he needs to – we really want – and to use Coach Woodley's terminology again, we want to jump up into that. We want to pounce that. We don't want to let him take that handoff and turn the corner and drive it middle.
It says here, we got one. You mentioned you had a young team in a 2-year college situation. When you're rebuilding every year, would you still run the pack line?
I would. Because I don't care what you're doing. There's going to be a learning curve. Coach Bennett told me one time that the pack line defense, it's a junior high defense. It's about as simplistic as you can play. It's all about your emphasis and that you're going to outlast that offensive team, but you're not giving up anything easy to those cats. And so I would run the pack line in a limited situation like that where you didn't have time. Now, here's what I would adjust. I may not post trap because that's a little bit more intricate. I'd probably try to guard my ball screens a little bit differently because that's a little bit intricate in terms of how you're going to guard them. And then lastly, I would run something just as simplistic on the offensive end of the floor so that I could spend the majority of my time, A, teaching my defense, B, teaching fundamental skill development to my players. And then the last thing would be our team offense.
How do you feel about pack line teams pressing? My last question, Troy Hilton's up next.
We don't press. The only time we press is in a in a situation where we're forced to. Maybe like we're in the last 2 minutes of a game or last 30 seconds. Let's say we're in the last 30 seconds of a game and we're down one and we know they're going to hold it and we've just hit a free throw and maybe substituted. And so we set up like a chase or press, man on the ball, try to deny, get a quick trap, see if we can get a steal out of the trap. We can't get a steal out of the trap, then we're going to foul. That's the only time we would press. The reason is we just don't want to do anything that's going to put our defense at risk of giving up layups. Remember, I go back to know your nose. I feel like if you're a pressing team, part of the deal is you're going to give up layups. If I wanted to be a pressing team, and I think all of us would love to press if all we did was 4 steals, but that's not what's going to happen. So if I was going to be a pressing team, then I would want to run. I'd want to try to create as many possessions as possible, and I would probably press all the way back into a half-court pressure defense as well. And that's just not who we are. Doesn't fit me. Again, know who you are.
Troy.
Hey, Coach. First of all, thanks for doing this. I think this has been really good for all the people that have tuned in today, and it's been good for me and Tom to do this. So we appreciate your willingness to help. The only question I had, I was just kind of curious. You mentioned early on that you had done, I think you said 4 programs where you build them from, basically you had to rebuild them.
Yes.
What was, I'm sure each one's a little bit different, but what was the incentive? You like the resurrection programs to try to do that? Is it a challenge involved, or what's your incentive for doing that?
It is, and great question. Thank you for asking that, and thank you guys for having me here today. It's been a pleasure. I apologize to our viewers that we had some technical difficulties there, but hey, as we have learned through this pandemic, we have to learn how to adjust and do things a little differently, and hopefully we got our point across today in any event. But Troy, to get back to your question, it kind of started that, the first job I took was a job that I didn't get until November 1st, and really nobody else wanted it. That's the only reason I got the job. I remember the president looked at me and said, are you sure you want this job? And I said, yeah. And he said, the other 4 guys we offered it to turned it down. Why do you want it? And so anyway, to make a long story short, I could have stayed there, ended up staying there forever. But we did finally move after turning a few opportunities down to get to the Division I level. We built the Robert Morris program up. We went to Eastern Michigan. We built them back to respectability. I made a life decision to go to a Tusculum College, a small Division II school, to coach my son. And we've just kind of had the good fortune of going in and taking those jobs that had something wrong with them that needed fixing, so to speak, as we say down here in the South, and making them better. And the challenge has been a part of it. I would also say this, Troy, there was a time in my career that I was chasing the next job. I wanted to climb that ladder as fast and quickly as I possibly could. I wanted to be, a Power 5 Division I coach. And I found out as I got through it that there was more to it than that. And so rather than chasing the next job, now what we've tried to do is chase significance where we can make a difference in people's lives and help them to accomplish their goals. And my plan is to be here at UAFS until the day I retire and make this the absolute best possible spot it can be, going back to the old frosty westering, make the big time where you are.
I know why you went there. Did you see that gym? Holy cow.
It's gorgeous. We have one of the absolute best facilities in Division II basketball, bar none.
We need to do some videos there with you, Coach.
Hey, I'm ready. Let's go.
Let's go. Hey, Coach, thanks for everything. I hope my intro, my introduction of you to all these coaches is exactly the truth. You give what you got, and you share everything, and you're the man. So thank you, and let us know if we can ever do anything for you, and thanks again.
Tom, thank you. And are we still on with the viewers?
Yes.
I want to thank everybody that tuned in today as well. And coaches, you know, if I gave you one little piece of advice in closing here, it come from the great Al McGuire, who he said the two greatest emotions in sports are winning and losing. So don't let the wins go to your head. Don't let the losses go to your heart. More importantly, it's got to be bigger than winning and losing. We're in this to help young people. And if I can help you in any way, do not hesitate to hit me up at jim.boone at uafs.com. And it may take me a little bit, but I promise you I will answer every single email. Thank you guys for all you're doing, Tom, Troy, your whole staff. This is amazing. It's phenomenal. It's awesome for coaches. It's a way for us to make the best out of our scenario. So thank you so much with what you're doing.
We've got Dane Fisher next in 6 minutes. Steve Prohm from Iowa State next. And then Ron Senderoff. Have a great day, everybody. See you soon.
Thank you.
Thanks, Coach.
Appreciate you.